the fact that I can't even talk to someone that left the church but they're still Christian, like that doesn't make any sense. And so it really affected me because he was literally like one of my best friends and I couldn't talk to him just because he left the church. Hello everybody and welcome back to ChiquitoCam. So today I'm going to be explaining how the church has influenced me throughout my entire life. So there's a lot of factors that play into this. So did have to make a list on everything. But basically I'm just gonna go by like all the rules that we had to follow and how it impacted like my life in the church and even like when I left. So the first rule that we couldn't break was we couldn't dance. They said that we had to either like dance in the spirit, which is basically, I guess, like God like controlling how you dance. And I know that sounds weird and stupid, and yes, it does sound stupid because in my church like no one ever did it. Like everybody was scared to dance, right? Because they specifically said no dancing. um but yeah, that was a rule that we had to follow. We couldn't at least dance to worldly music, but people wouldn't dance at my church because everybody was scared, I guess, to be called out, I guess, for dancing and breaking that rule. But how that has affected me was because I literally do not know how to dance. Like, I, when I left the church, I tried like dancing on my own. I just got so embarrassed because I didn't know how to dance. Like, I didn't know how to keep rhythm and stuff. And I don't know if that's because like I'm a musician, but there are like people who are like talented in both, like in like being a musician and dancing. But for me, no, like specifically musician, like or music, that's like my forte. But dancing, definitely, I cannot dance at all. Um, I should make a video on because my friend who also left the church, her name is Kayla. She knows how to dance very well. But she did say that she would like secretly dance like when she was in the church. So I guess she had like I don't know, some experience, but for me I had zero experience because I truly believe that dancing was a sin. But yeah, I think it would be really funny to like film a video with her of her teaching me how to dance. That would be really cool. The second one was no worldly music. So we couldn't listen to, I don't know, Taylor Swift. We couldn't listen to, I'm trying to think of other artists. Like, it's so hard. Um, any secular music, basically, right? So any music that isn't Christian. So growing up, I only listened to Christian music like Matthew West, Bethel music. Casting Crowns was definitely a big one. But yeah, we couldn't like listen to music that was like different from that. Like we had to listen to music that was specifically Christian. And so that really affected me, especially as a musician, right? Because I wasn't exposed to a lot of music. The only way I would be exposed to secular music was like in PE, like in elementary, middle school, high school, where like they would play like that music, like on the speakers, like while we were doing like our exercises and all that. That was the only way I was exposed to that type of music, but they would always like play like the same ones over and over again, and those were the only ones that I like actually listened to. Um, but yeah, like when people like tell me like, "Have you heard of this artist? Have you heard of this artist?" Like I would say no because I wasn't exposed to that. I didn't know about those artists. I didn't even know that they existed. So it really did affect me. We also couldn't watch like worldly movies, right? Or like secular TV shows that weren't Christian. And again, it goes back to I wasn't exposed to any of that. So like when people ask me like, did you watch this movie? And then I'll be like, no. And then it would be like the most common movie, and they'd be like, what? Like everybody has seen that movie. I'm like, no, not me. Because I wasn't allowed to watch that movie. And then also another one was no facial hair. So we couldn't have facial hair. So right now I'm growing facial hair. I'm trying to grow it out to see how it looks like, to see if I like it. Also piercing, no piercings. I've never really wanted a piercing, at least growing up, but I Now that I'm out of the church, I've always wanted like a nose piercing, but I think that's it. I don't think I would want to get another piercing besides a nose piercing. I think I would look good with a nose piercing. But I want to know what you guys think. Would I look good in a piercing, like in a nose piercing? Like, would I look good with other piercings? Like, just let me know in the comment section down below. Women were also not allowed to wear makeup. As a kid, I've always wanted to wear makeup that kind of like disappeared like the more that I grew up. But I've always wanted to like wear makeup or like try it out. In the future when I do move out, like I do want to try like at least like blush, a little bit of blush. But I mean, with makeup, I guess that's all I would do. Um, I don't know if lip gloss counts as makeup. I'm wearing it right now. Um, but yeah, that's the fourth one, I believe. The next one was, they didn't necessarily say this, but we couldn't have like any critical thinking skills. Like if you had a question, you couldn't seek like, I mean, you could seek outside sources, but they deemed it as like dangerous. Like if you had a question like on the Bible, if you didn't agree with something, you would have to go to a church leader about it. But you know that's literally biased opinions because they are of course gonna like try to act as if like the Bible is 100% true. And if something is a contradiction, of course they're either gonna say, okay, that no, that's not literal, like it's not the literal interpretation of it. They'll just kind of go around it and not actually give you like an answer to a question. They said that questioning is like very harmful, that it's gonna cause you to doubt. And I'm like, that's a little bit, or not a little bit, but that's really suspicious. Like if you can't even like think about like the topic yourself, like that's a very like cultish tactic to use. There was also no associating with ex church members. So if a church member left the church, you weren't allowed to really speak to them, which I think is very fucked up. So there was like a very dramatic experience that me and my friends had in the church. So basically, one of my closest friends left the church, and me being so young, because they did leave when I was like very young, maybe like 9 years old, 10 years old. So I did kind of have that memory. But basically, they left the church, and now that I'm out of the church, maybe it was because of like stuff that I also went through. Like maybe they were seeing the church as a cult and they wanted to like, I guess, leave. They didn't tell me specifically the reason why they left. And the church said that well, I guess they didn't say like why they were leaving, at least to me. But the church said that because they had a meeting with the church leaders, and the church leaders said that they left because they wanted to start their own church, which they did. But I don't think that was the main reason why they left. And I think it's because they thought that the church was literally a cult, and it literally is. And I guess the church leaders didn't want to say that in front of all of us, so they decided to lie to us about the reason. And so after that, I never saw my friend ever again. There was a time like during COVID where he had Instagram, my friend, and I guess he found my friend Kayla's Instagram as well. Um, but he decided to add us, and he was like, hey, like can we like hang out sometime, or can we like join a Zoom call, because like Zooms were like a major thing during COVID. And so we were like, okay, yeah, let's do a Zoom call. So while we were doing the Zoom call, my mom decided to come in, and she was like, who are you speaking to? And I was like, oh, I'm speaking to Israel. And that was his name. And she was like, you can't be speaking to him, like he left the church. And I was like, why does it matter? Like they're still Christian, like they're just going to another church. And she was like, no, you cannot be speaking to them. And then so she made me leave the call, and she decided to tell the church leaders about it, and which really really pissed me off, because I'm like, why are you going through, like why are you interfering with like my personal life? Like why are you trying to control who I can and cannot talk to? And they're literally Christian. Like it just did not make sense to me, and it still doesn't. So when we had that meeting in church, right, so every friend that I had, I guess in like my age group, because we were all like around the same age. They decided to have a meeting with all of us, and they were basically saying how we cannot hang out with him because he's not part of the church anymore. So yeah, it now looking back at it, like it's so cultish. It's like the fact that I can't even talk to someone that left the church but they're still Christian, like that doesn't make any sense. And so it really affected me because he was literally like one of my best friends, and I couldn't talk to him just because he left the church. Also, anxiety and depression was also seen as a spiritual battle and not a medical condition, which I think is super dangerous because I went through, I wouldn't say depression, like medical depression or maybe, but I remember constantly feeling so depressed and anxious, like being in the church. And I always thought it was because the devil was like attacking my life. But no, it was literally the church that was causing that. Because I was at constant fear that I would like sin, or especially like when I was like growing up, right, with teens and hormones and all that. Like I was just scared to like commit sexual sin and just have like immoral thoughts, right? And on top of that, like I just had a lot of pressure because I did play the piano in the church with the instruments. So how my church looked was like right when you enter, it was like a corridor, like a very long corridor, and there would be like where the classrooms are for like Sunday school. But if you don't like keep going, if you turn to the left, that's like where we have like the main like meeting room for the church services. And in that meeting room we had like all the benches and like where the door is at, and then they keep like lining up, and then towards the front we have the pulpit, but there's an area that's like on top. So like where the pulpit is, there's like a there's the it's very hard to explain. Maybe I'll draw it out. I'm not a drawer, so don't bully me. But basically we had the benches, and then it was like a carpet where the praying area was, and then right in front of that carpet was like the pulpit, but it was on like a level. And so it was like basically like another level. And that's where like all the instruments would be, and that's where like the person who was selected to preach would preach there, or whoever was like leading the service. And so with that, you couldn't be up there if you weren't baptized, and if you were like wrong with God, if that makes sense. Like if you were like sinning and you need forgiveness, like you can't go on top of there. Even if you're selected to preach, like you have to preach on the bottom. You can't be up there. So it was like if they're like living in the Old Testament, where like they treated that as like the tabernacle. Like that shit was so ridiculous. So me being a musician in the church, right, where the instruments are on top of there, right? I couldn't be up there unless I was right with God. And with me, I was having a lot of personal struggles. So often they had to move my instrument on the bottom, and it was literally a humiliation ritual. Like it was so bad. Like it made me depressed, it made me anxious. Like they caused anxiety in myself for no entire reason. And I know a lot of people in my church, or in my ex-church, right, suffered from depression, they suffered from anxiety, and they just said, oh, it's literally the devil attacking your life, when literally it was the church that was causing it. And it's honestly very sad reflecting on that, because in my church, a lot of people are poor, a lot of people were vulnerable, and it just makes me sad that they took advantage of those people and are still taking advantage of those people. All right, guys, so we have reached the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like down below. Make sure to subscribe and also turn on this post notification so you guys don't miss out on any video. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.